The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. Joining me today on the panel are Father Corey Stika. Hi, Father Corey.
How's it going, Dom?
Excellent. And Joanne Mercier. Hi, Joanne.
Hello, everyone.
So I wanted to start with a little brief bit of follow-up from a previous show. If you have an iOS device and you have not yet done so, please update right away to the latest version of iOS 12. It has a fix for the FaceTime bug that was in it, as well as some other zero-day exploits. Those are security bugs that were not out in the wild, but now that the update has been made, are out in the wild, and if you don't update, the bad guys will try to exploit them on you. So update your devices. Make sure to do it right away.
That's always good advice, regardless if it's iOS, Android, Mac, Windows, your little LED light bulb, whatever it is. If it's got an update, update it.
Yes.
It really is worth it. Keep it up to date.
But please remember, if it's Windows, it's going to take all day.
Right.
True.
For Windows, set aside some time. But yeah, that's a good point about the light bulbs. Like all that Internet of Things stuff, all of that. I mean, this is the world we live in now, folks. You have to keep your security stuff updated because bad guys have learned to hack them all.
I've got a couple of the Philips Hue bulbs, and Google Assistant will not work with it if it needs to be updated. It's just like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Why not? Go to the app. Needs to be updated.
That is a good security measure. That's excellent. So we've had some heavy topics in recent weeks. About social media and big corporations and government stuff. And I wanted to take it a little lighter this week and to kind of bring up some fun topics. And the first one today I wanted to bring up was about electric and autonomous vehicles. And the whole idea of electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, when I was a kid, that was far future. That was science fiction still. And even 15 years ago, it was still science fiction, the idea of an autonomous vehicle. I remember a Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, I think it was Sixth Day, where it was about cloning or something, but he had a pickup truck that was autonomous vehicle, and it had these chairs, like the driver's chair could turn, and you would face everybody in it, and they would have these conversations while the car's driving itself. And I'm like, that is so cool. I want that. So, and we're nearly at that point.
Well, and I remember seeing pictures from like 1950s Popular Mechanics where they'd show them sitting there playing checkers in the car as it's going down the interstate.
Yeah, we're not quite where we want to take a nap while the car is driving, although some Tesla drivers have been photographed doing that. But but we're getting close. So what I wanted to talk about was, what would make you want to get an electric vehicle? Is that the sort of thing you'd want, or an autonomous vehicle? And what would hold you back right now from getting that? What do they need to improve if it's not something that you think you could get now? So I just want to kind of go through the pros and cons. And folks, the audience, if you want to weigh in, we'd love to hear from you. To send us some feedback to technology@sqpn.com, and we'd love to hear from you. What you think about electric and autonomous vehicles. But Joanne, can we start with you? What is it about electric autonomous vehicles that attract you, and what might hold you back from getting one now?
Well, I've looked at electric cars only because I drive a long distance, about an hour from work every day. And I have a Subaru, and this is my 6th Subaru. Subaru does not make electric cars. To me, I need a car that has 4-wheel drive. Living in New England, if I don't have 4-wheel drive, and the electric cars that I've seen, I don't know, I've been not impressed if they have 4-wheel drive, or most of them just have front-wheel drive.
Right.
So for me, that's what I'm looking for. Yes, do I want to be, carbon friendly? Of course I do. But right now I have to think about my safety going to and from. As I get older, I am looking at autonomous vehicles only because I think that might be the future for older people, where some of us should not be driving after a certain age. And if we invest in an autonomous vehicle, I think it's safer for us rather than Uber or Lyft. But I would again need to see, because I've seen about these cars crashing into things and people, and I don't want that either. So for me, it's a watch and see, I guess, on both. But I need a car that's going to be able to do long distance right now.
You make a good point about the autonomous vehicles being a boon for older folks. I've got parents who are in their 80s, and my mom still drives just because we need her to. She needs to get her doctor's appointment. She goes to daily mass with my dad. It's like, but I worry. I worry about her. And if we had an autonomous vehicle where she could just get in and tell it where to take her, that would change so much. It would give her independence, and that's a big concern for older folks. But right. Yeah, we had a case in the news in the Boston area a few months ago about an older couple in an Uber who got into some kind of dispute with their driver, and he ended up leaving them on the side of the road because they got an argument. I mean, that's the sort of thing I get worried about. But
that's what I worry about.
Yeah,
and my mom used to take cabs. Back in the day, she would take cabs all over the place, and I'd be really worried. However, my Portuguese mother, if she would have been I would love to have seen her try to instruct an autonomous vehicle as to where to go. So, God rest her soul.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't go there. That's in another dimension where the devil lives.
Yes.
So, Father Corey, now you live in Montana, where you have to travel long distances.
Oh yes,
I'm
very,
going to guess
very
that's
rural Montana,
right?
And I'm very much a car fanatic. I like cars. I'd love to have an old classic car to have fun with and chase around in. And I've got my Dodge Charger's my plaything, and all that. But so I'm interested in what electric vehicles can do. I'm very interested in autonomous vehicles. It would be very nice, like on Sunday morning as I'm finishing up my homily to jump in the car and as I'm driving to the first mass for Sunday. I'm kidding. But to be able to go, say to Billings, 200 miles south of here, to be able to just hop in my car, hit a button and go.
Right.
And it drives. I don't have to sit and watch the road, because it's very tiring, to be able to do other things, to let the car drive.
Right.
Would be incredible. My concern, obviously, with autonomous is, first of all, it needs to be able to handle less than perfect situations.
Right.
Yes.
Roads that aren't in good shape because of weather, animals coming out. Deer coming across the road or whatever is a very real threat here. And then, of course, electric vehicles, distance is a major issue.
So there was a case a few last year or the year before of a Tesla where it swerved to avoid an accident before the driver even knew the accident was happening, like before the accident even happened. The vehicle could sense what the cars in front of it were doing and knew an accident was going to happen and started to slow down. And that actually might be actually better for the animal problem.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think people assume that they can control better than a computer can. And with the sensors and everything they can pack into these cars, even now with it still being in its infancy, I would trust a car over my own instincts.
Yeah.
My Subaru has what's called eyesight, so it will brake for me if something is coming and I'm not fast enough. But what I have found with it is that I replaced a windshield and they haven't recalibrated it. So now it's not exactly, it's braking way before.
Right.
So it must be seeing further in the distance. So that's the kind of thing, you've got to stay on top of as an owner, to know that it's calibrated correctly.
That's a good
now,
point.
The biggest issue, though, with electric vehicles for me right now is just the capacity, how long the vehicle can run. Because it's nice to say, oh, yes, Tesla's in beautiful, sunny Southern California when there's 80 degrees year round can do 200 miles.
Right.
That doesn't help me right now when it's at 0 or below, it's snowing, and I would need to have the heater on, which draws the electricity, which probably is going to cut down my distance. And then when I do get to where I'm going, will I be able to plug it in and recharge it in a reasonable amount of time, or will I have to stay there till the next day?
that to me is right now the two biggest issues. The first issue is range, and they're fixing that, I think. I mean, they're getting better at it. Let's put it that way. And they're helping that by they're putting these recharging stations between major cities, which doesn't help, say, Montana, for instance. I'm going to guess that Montana is not going to have enough recharging stations spread throughout the state to help people wherever they need to go for a long time to come. But that's the other thing is the recharging time. I read an article. It was about a journalist who was testing out a Tesla and drove from Houston to Austin and back and talked about the experience. And that's I think that's about like 1.5 times the Tesla's range, especially in stop and go traffic and some other issues. And so he had to stop halfway through. And when you got to refuel in an electric car, you don't just refill in 3 minutes or whatever it is. You have to sit there for a half hour at least recharging.
And that doesn't give you a full tank. Last I heard with the supercharger, and this was a couple of years ago when they first really started rolling out the supercharger system, Teslas could recharge like 100 miles in a half an hour.
Yeah, I think it's better now. I think you get up to like 75 to 80% of capacity in a half hour. But that's just like with phones. You can do that with a phone, that fast charging. But at that last 20%, it takes hours to do. Like, they have to slow it down.
Like for me, I know they do have the superchargers here in Montana, but the closest one is Billings, 200 miles away.
Right. Which
so I would have to get to Billings to be able to recharge to go on to wherever else I'm going from there.
Right.
And Dom, I don't know about you. We both live, within striking distance of Boston.
Right.
I live in Rhode Island. I haven't seen many charging stations. To be honest,
they're around. They're not ubiquitous. They're not highly visible. But they are charging a lot of charging stations around. There are charging stations at places of business. The last place I worked, they had places set aside. But there are other issues like what's the cost to the grid? You've got to, you're going to have power at home being drawn on that, and power at wherever you're going. They have to be willing to give you that electricity. Electricity costs money, and then things like, I had thought if I was still doing that commute, my next car I might think about electric because I was just driving in and out of Boston, and the range would not have been an issue. But the other thing that is a problem for me is vehicle capacity. And by that, I mean, not driving range. I mean, how much a vehicle can hold. I have 5 kids, and it's getting harder and harder to find any car, gas or electric, that'll fit a large family. I drive a Ford Transit full-size van for my 5 kids because that's what they make that can fit my family without being jammed in. Like, I know you can get a Honda Odyssey. It supposedly fits 7. That's if you're very friendly and no one has car seats.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't want to carry any luggage or go on any trips. That is a consideration that I'm not sure anybody in the car industry is actually looking at.
Well, and so many of these electric cars, although admittedly Tesla's made some pretty good sized vehicles, but a lot of them are small. Look at like the Chevy, was it the Chevy Bolt?
Oh yeah.
That thing is tiny.
Yes.
I wouldn't trust it if it did hit something.
Right. Well, and the handling is going to be all different because all the weight is in the battery, which is in the bottom, which gives it a low center of gravity, which is good, but it changes the handling. And, things like, the torque is different. I mean, actually, electric vehicles have more torque, which is good. Oh. But how you drive it is different. But then there's other things like I was just gonna there was another issue. Oh, the quietness of an electric car, which they've said is an issue for, say, pedestrians. Like, I like the idea of it being quiet outside, like less roaring engines. But, when a pedestrian's stepping out into the street, if you're not paying too close of attention, you're used to hearing engines, that can be a danger.
It could be, but of course that goes down. At what point do we say, pedestrians are supposed to be paying attention when they're crossing the street anyways? Right. So whether or not you've got the big nasty diesel where the guy's pulled off his mufflers, or you've got a little Tesla that's making no noise at all, he should know that that's coming.
There'll be a period of time of transition as people get used to the change in this sort of thing. So, And to address your other point, Tesla is apparently, Elon Musk has said they're working on an electric pickup truck. So I'm curious to see how they pull that off, and what other types of vehicles we'll be getting. Well, that's all. That is very interesting discussion. I appreciate that. Your responses on that, and some things I think which I hadn't heard before. So that's good. And like I said, folks, I'd love to hear from you. What do you think? What would make you get an electric vehicle? What holds you back from getting an electric vehicle or an autonomous vehicle eventually? We'd love to hear from you. So let's move on to our second segment, which this is going to be a fun one. This is I call this how far have we come in technology in a generation? And so this YouTuber had this video where he looked back at this AT&T ad campaign from 25 years ago called "We Will" or "You Will," I think is what it said. And it says it had Tom Selleck in a voiceover, talking about the sorts of things we'll be able to do in the future. This is 1993, so in the future. Yeah. And so I'd like to talk about like what it is they showed in these commercials and how well we've reached that if we have you'll realize that future. So the like I said, it was 1993. Ad campaign was called "You Will," and talks about things like ebooks and GPS and that sort of stuff on demand streaming videos and movies and that sort of stuff. So what I'll do is I'll talk about the prediction, and I'll put a link to the video in the show notes, folks. When you go to sqpn.com/technology, you'll be able to get to watch the video where this guy shows the clips and talks about it himself. But I'd like to kind of go through it ourselves. This is like a little fun exercise. So the first one is it said you'll be able to renew your driver's license from a cash machine, and it showed a guy at a machine getting his driver's license picture taken, and then it spits out his driver's license for him right there. What do you think? How close have we gotten to that? Is it something we want?
I don't know about that, but I mean, as close as AAA, because that's where I renew my license.
Well, I have heard there are some states that you can do every other renewal over the internet.
Massachusetts is one. And so, in fact, not even just every other, you can do it every year until you have to get a new photo in Massachusetts, and that's more than 2 years. So I have, I don't remember the last time I had to go in and get my driver's license done. I do it online every time.
Yeah, we do it 8-year licenses though, but it, I mean, I renewed it a year ago, and it was literally go in 15 minutes later, I've got my temporary license, I'm done, type of deal.
The benefit of Montana, I think, around here,
and Rhode Island, we can use the same picture. I'm still on a picture from 10 years ago, believe it or not. So but I think it depends, but I don't think we've gone to the point where you just put the money in and get the license out. I don't think that's going to happen for a while.
Is the technology there? I would say absolutely. Do I ever see the states moving to that technology? Maybe someday. As long as they get their coin, that's all the state cares about.
I think the renewal part is there, and frankly, the technology that they have implemented has made the DMV better. Let's just acknowledge that. The DMV is nowhere near the living hell it used to be.
Yes, I agree.
Before all of that. All right, so let's move on to the second one, which is it shows a bunch of kids in a living room, and one of the kids walks up to the big screen TV on the wall, and Tom Selleck says, "You can watch the movie you want to watch the moment you want to watch it," and the kid presses the button and they're watching. I mean, that's right.
The exact way that he does it isn't how it works, but it's close enough.
Right. I mean, think about it. When I was a kid, you had to want to watch a movie. When I was young enough, if you wanted to watch a movie, you had to go to the theater, or you had to wait for it to come on broadcast TV, right?
Yep.
But then we got Blockbuster, we got VCRs, but still you had to go and rent it, and if it was rented out, sorry, you're not watching it. But now, pretty much you could watch pretty much any movie you want at a moment's notice, whether you have Netflix and streaming, or you want to pay for it, like Google or iTunes or that sort of thing. So, yep, I think that one clearly.
Yeah, they hit that one right on the head.
So there was another one is take classes from faraway places. And it shows this guy sitting in a room. So he's not at home, but he's sitting at a desk with a monitor, and there's a teacher on the screen talking. And then the student presses a button on the screen, says, I have a question, and there's an interactive moment. So it's an interactive remote classroom. What do you think? So can we do it? Are we doing it? Does that seem like something
I would
we
say,
want?
kind of a yes and no. I mean, you can do remote classes now. I know that there's a lot of people who do classes over the internet. Are they exactly as they show it, where the kid's sitting there watching this lecture live? No, not often, not really.
Yeah.
Right now, it's usually pre-recorded lectures, and you do your paperwork remotely.
Right.
Yeah, I think we've got both going on, though, because he did bring up the fact that there are kids who are using a robot with like an iPad on it,
right,
so that they are interactive in real time. But I've taken online classes, and it depends. Sometimes there is a live person there. Sometimes, everything's pre-recorded, but it's one-on-one. I'm not in a room with other people.
Right.
And that's what they were showing. It was like a room with other people. And it's really one-on-one with your computer.
And there are things like that. I know the state of North Dakota, their university system does have and they've had it for about 15 years or so, where teachers will be in one university and then students will be at another university watching it over video, kind of like this shows. So that is something that does exist. But again, that's a classroom environment. Most people, though, when they talk about remote classes, they talk about sitting in their house watching the pre-recorded class and working it that way.
Right. Yes. GoToMeeting and webinars, those are a version of this too, I have to say. So we kind of have some of this, but not exactly where they show it. Then the next one is it shows a woman probably on a business trip or something like that. And it says, touch your baby from a phone booth. And she goes into a phone booth and dials, the numbers and calls, and on the screen she sees her baby. Now, we have video telephone calls, but what did AT&T completely miss?
Yeah.
That you're not going to be doing it, at a public phone.
Exactly.
As we're basically doing that via Skype right now.
Right. Exactly. You and I, the three of us, we're doing that. But yeah, the idea that you would go to a phone booth and do it, I think AT&T, like so many others, did not anticipate that phone booths would go away.
Well, and to be fair, I mean, it's kind of to talk about kind of one of the wider issues is in 1993, 1994, when they did these commercials, commercial use of the internet was in its infancy. It had just been opened up to the wider commercial use. No one had a clue of what the internet could do.
Right. We had AOL and Prodigy and CompuServe at the time, but not like the wild World Wide Web as we have it now. Right. That's true. So the next one is keep an eye on your home when you're not at home. And it was a person on a train, and they have a tablet-like device and a stylus. I like the stylus. Yep. And they were like circling and doing things on it with their like a plan of their home. And then they show this multi-million-dollar house overlooking an ocean where the lights come on remotely. And I'm like, I can do that.
Yeah, nailed it. Yep,
I can do that. I can do that but I could also do that with an A-lady too. I mean, that's the whole thing. They were sitting there with a tablet, yet if you have the Amazon app, you can actually command the A-lady to do that
Google,
for you.
Or Siri or any of those.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that one is very clearly, I mean, all that smart home stuff, the doorbells, all that stuff is here and accessible. Not just to people with multi-million-dollar homes overlooking the ocean, but, average Joes like me. So that's a good one. This one might have been my favorite. It was a guy in Yosemite, and his watch rings, and it says, get a phone call on your wrist. And I'm like, oh, I mean, yeah. Everybody hold up your Apple Watch to it. I mean, we can do that. We can, this is Dick Tracy land. We don't do video calls yet. I'm sure that's coming. But we can get, we could make, and especially if you have an Apple Watch Series 4, you don't even need your phone to get the call on your wrist.
But the phone looked so big.
Oh, the watch? Yeah.
It was huge on his wrist, It was like, give me a break.
Yes. But I did like that one. Another one, open doors with the sound of your voice. And it showed a woman with her arms full of groceries coming to an apartment door or something like that. And it kind of walks up and says, open the door. And it opens for her. And so what do you think? I mean, is this a promise kept? Is this something we can do?
It's something that's I think is technologically feasible. I think it's also people have realized it's impractical.
Yes. But I think an A lady can do it. I think there's probably a lock out there that allows you to do that.
There are. Well, yeah, there are smart locks that and maybe not with Amazon, but I know with both Google and Siri.
I have one that can do it with Amazon. So I have a Yale lock. I actually just installed it recently. It'll be my pick of the week soon. But I can control it with both Siri and the A lady. And I always have to check to make sure I didn't activate any of the things that but I could control them with that, and I can unlock it. But there is that problem of when it's the summer, somebody walks up to the front door, pokes their head through the screen, and yells at the A lady in the can to open the door. That's what I worry about a little bit. So that might not be something we want. So the next one is carry your medical history in your wallet. It's a guy bringing his pregnant wife in, and the doctor reaches into the guy's pocket and pulls out a card and puts it in the computer, and all her medical records, including her sonogram and all that stuff, comes up on a screen. So what do you think?
People can barely keep their insurance cards on them, medical insurance cards on them, much less your entire medical history.
But don't we have apps like that now? That some of them have your medical history in them, either you put it in there, or because I know when I go for tests, my chart has, if my doctor puts all the information in, I can call it up and take a look at it, and so can anybody else.
Right.
It does depend on. It does depend on the hospital. It does depend on the insurance company. Like I have an app for my insurance company, so I can pull up some of my information. But as far as like all my records, no, it's still not 100% there.
As someone who recently changed pediatricians with 5 kids, I would have loved to have had that, because I had to pay $15 per kid plus 50 cents a sheet or some ridiculous amount of money for each kid's records to be photocopied and delivered to the new doctor. So I would go for this in a heartbeat. And then the next one, another one I love, it's a guy at a beach house. He's got his computer in front of him, and it says attend a meeting in your bare feet, and he's video conferencing. He's basically, now we're not, I don't have shoes on, I have socks on. It's not quite weather for bare feet, but we're essentially doing that. And I'm not at a beach house, which would be nice.
And I was going to say, you look out my window, you don't see sand, you see snow. Sorry.
Right.
Me too.
But I have recorded a podcast from a beach house, right? I did that.
Yes, you did.
A couple summers ago. But yeah, I mean, this is a promise fulfilled. I mean, we can do this today. The video conferencing, we're doing it right now. Have a classmate thousands of miles away, and it showed a little girl in a classroom talking to a class, like in Los Angeles or something, talking to a kid in China. And this one is a lot like the other one, where remote classroom learning. But I kind of agree with the YouTuber when he was talking about this. I'm not sure why you would want to have kids from,
who'd be interested to hear about this one is Barb in Nebraska.
Oh yeah, Barb.
Yes.
Yeah, Barb.
She was on the last Let's Talk, and she's an educator, and she uses like Skype and other things like that for stuff like this. I think she would be a good one to talk about these education ones.
I'd love to hear Barb's take on this, because it is kind of like that. A lot of classrooms now will do that. They'll Skype with classrooms from Scotland or China or whatever to kind of have the kids have that interchange. So that's true. There's a little of that. Yeah. Conduct business in a language you don't understand. And it shows a guy on a video call. He's in English, and he's video calling some guy who's speaking French. And the video call is auto-translating on the screen for them. What do you think? I mean, are we there yet?
Didn't Apple demonstrate something like that at one of their last?
Google did at the last Google I/O. Yeah.
Well, Google Translate has had some capability to do this for about 2 or 3 years, and they've been really working on, the idea where I can sit here with my phone and say what I want to say, and it will, like a universal translator, Star Trek style, will repeat in the different language and vice versa.
So I mean, so we're pretty much there. I mean, it's not perfect. There's still what was it? The Verge, I think, did a article recently where it had a Mandarin speaking journalist for the go in to talk to a concierge with a Google assistant doing the translating, and it was way off. It was just so far off. By the time halfway through the conversation, they were totally in a random place and not communicating. So we're sort of close, very close, but not.
Yeah, if you've ever seen the Google Translate to Google Translate, where someone will take something, translate it to like a different to French, and then translate it back to the original language, and sometimes it gets it pretty well, and sometimes it's way off.
Right.
Fail.
Yes. So the next one, I want to keep moving to keep us on target here. The next one is borrow a book from thousands of miles away, and it shows this young woman sitting in a library with this giant CRT in front of her. I love that.
Yep.
Watching a video of the book's pages being turned in front of her, and I'm thinking, well,
Kindle.
Yeah.
Kindle.
How I was gonna say how they show it doesn't work. However, a lot of libraries have the Kindle sharing.
Yes. I mean, in fact, I don't have to go to the library to get a book. I can sit here at home, download it, read it, return the book all through my Kindle. I mean, I mean, we're there. And the other thing I always wanted to be able to do, and not that I necessarily do it all that often, but like you could go to the Vatican's website and go to the Vatican Library and see some of these ancient books that before you'd have to be an accredited scholar and fly to Rome to see them. But now we could just sit at home on our computer and see them up close. They take super high res scans of them. So yeah, I'd say promise fulfilled on that one.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely.
So, here's another one that I think promise fulfilled. Cross the country without stopping for directions. Shows a couple in a car with visual and audio navigation on a screen in the dash.
Yep.
I mean, yeah.
Yep,
done.
we all have a navigator now.
Yeah. I mean, it's now I carry it in my pocket, not even in the dash. That's so much more. And then
I kind of go between which one's going to exactly get me there, the car or the phone. I'm never sure which one.
Right. So and then send someone a fax from the beach, and it shows a guy sitting on the beach sending a fax. A fax? What's a fax? Mike,
do we still send faxes?
Oh yes, they do. Right, Father Corey. The church still sends faxes.
Oh,
I know that.
Hey, fax is new technology. But again, this is one of those. Maybe the implementation they show isn't perfect, but the idea is sound. Ideas here.
Yes, I mean certainly people work from the beach on an iPad. I loved that antenna, like the old radio telescoping antenna on it, like that. iPad thing had this long antenna on it. But the idea of like sitting on a tablet at the beach working, you could totally do it
all the time.
Yes. Pay a toll without slowing down, which promise kept, right? I do. Of course, the implementation they show is a guy, as he approaches the toll booth, pulls out his credit card and swipes a reader on his dash while the car's going through the booth. Which
I was hoping he didn't have a coin thing there, to stick the tokens in
into his dash, right? But the idea is sound, which is I mean we don't have to slow down. There's ways to communicate.
I loved it living in. I know the Northeast is a little bit behind on this, but the Chicago area, all the tollways now have the at-speed tolling, where you don't have to slow down at all for the toll booth.
Yeah, we pretty much have those now too.
Yeah,
okay, good. Because I know Illinois was ahead on that, where they had the entire system, and that was so nice. Yeah, 70 miles an hour. I mean, 55, quote unquote. If you ever driven in Chicago, there is no 55. You just go through. Boom, you got the toll.
Anyone of a certain age who lives in Massachusetts and is used to going to, say, New Hampshire or Maine on vacation, the Hampton tolls on Route 95, so everybody has to go through that basically, and they used to be infamous for 10-mile backups for the tolls.
Yep.
Now you just go straight through this hard. I mean, there's still backups occasionally because people are stupid and crash, but
but it's true.
But it's not because of the tolls. It's
exactly.
Amazing. So then the last one was buy concert tickets from a cash machine. And now I have to say, buying tickets for the movies or a concert, I mean, I've bought them from a kiosk, right?
Fandango, the app, is good for movies.
Right. Now that And while even you can even like a lot of them, you can pick your seat, but ahead of time, this is the seat I want to sit in.
Yeah.
You know, is it a 3D holographic representation? No. Maybe
No,
that'll
but-
come, but
For example, MLB though, you know, if you go to a baseball game, you can pick your seat and it will show you from that section what your view is like. It'll
Yes.
show you a picture of it. So
Yep.
you get basically the same thing.
But who's the intern who had to sit in every seat and take a photo of every
Yeah, I know.
ballpark? So
Well, and of course they don't do the actual seat, but they do the section. So you get
Right.
kind of
That's
the
true.
general idea. But
That's
still,
true.
yeah, some guy had to go, okay, move over 20 seats, take a picture. Move over 20 seats, take a picture. Move over, you know, repeat.
right.
Yeah, there are concert venues and small theaters that do the same thing, so that when you're buying online, you know
Mhm.
where you'd be able to see the stage.
Definitely, yeah, and that's I'd say that's a promise fulfilled. Now, so that's all of them. So let's kind of go back to the beginning and sort of ask. This was AT&T sort of promising a vision of the future.
Yeah.
You know, how do they do, and how much do their own corporate bias, you think, affect the predictions?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. I mean,
in what way?
I don't think they saw the rise of wireless. I don't
Right.
think they saw the rise of home access to these resources. I mean, of course, they showed that, you know, watching a video on your big screen TV, and it's kind of interesting. That looked like an LCD flat
Yes.
panel big screen
It
TV,
It did, yeah.
and that was a pipe dream technology then, 25 years ago.
Right.
As ubiquitous as they are now, that was unheard of back then to have a TV that big. But I think they figured that they would still be in the landline market.
Right, and that they would be the leader in all of these communications areas
Right.
as well.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree with that. I think they thought landline was the way to go, or cable, because
Yep.
cable was just coming in at that point. So they
Right.
must have known they were going to go down the cable road as well. But the phone booth, that was the one that said to me,
Mhm.
"You had no idea what more was coming, did you?"
Right. I mean, so many of
Yeah.
these things. So it was cash machines, phone booths, you know, a desk at a classroom or a big
Yep.
computer in a library. They what they didn't see was the ubiquity that everyone would have it in their pocket and be at
And-
home and sitting on the couch.
And to be fair, at the time, you know, what was cell coverage like?
Oh yeah.
It was the big bag phone sitting in your car or in your briefcase that you had to carry with you.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't a little something you could slip in your shirt pocket or in your purse. It wasn't something that was simple and easy to carry with you. It was something that was big and bulky.
Well, my wife reminded me that in 2005, when we got married, I just have to remember which year it was, but it was 2005 we got married, where we were on our honeymoon driving through Nova Scotia. And, you know, you're in the middle of nowhere, you have no cell coverage, whatever. And I remember we had this conversation about in the not too distant future, you'll be able to access the internet from anywhere. And that's just in 2005, that seemed like, you know, futuristic. Wow. How will they
That
do
was
that?
just starting to get to that point there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I remember having this conversation, and I worked as a tech guy. I worked as a computer guy after I got out of the Air Force. So this was 99. And I was talking about how we'd have, you know, Wi-Fi was just kind of a pipe dream. It's like, oh, this is going to be everywhere. You're going to have Wi-Fi everywhere. And guys laughed at me. Well, what do we
Right.
basically have with 4G and now coming 5G coverage?
Yes.
Basically
everywhere.
the equivalent of Wi-Fi everywhere.
Yep. So, folks, I mean, that's a lot of fun to kind of to look back and to kind of look forward a little bit, and that's what I'd like to encourage again. If listeners would love to, I'd love to hear from you. What do you think will be the technologies we're going to see coming up in the future? What do you think we'll see in 25 years? You play AT&T and say, you know, you will 25 years from now. That'll be fun. So send us again, technology@sqpn.com. Send us your thoughts on that. So let's move on to our final segment, the picks of the week. And I'd love to start with you, Joanne. What is your pick for this week?
My pick of the week, because I am a semi cord cutter, which means I still have cable, but on my terms, is our little all-in-one entertainment systems called TiVos. When I was doing a cost analysis 2 years ago, I was finding out that we were spending way too much on cable, and I wanted to at least bring down the cost, because my husband, again, is one of those gentlemen who just wants to grab the remote and sit there and flip. And since most of the cord cutting stuff, it's not conducive to that sort of activity, I found the TiVo, and my friend in California had a TiVo for years and had spouted the wonders of it. So I got one, and what I was able to do was I was able to save $42 a month just returning the boxes to the cable company and the remotes, and I spend $5 on a cable card that goes into the TiVo, and the TiVo picks up everything. Now, there is a yearly fee for TiVo to get onto their grid system, but it's still cheaper in the long run, because my husband's an accountant, he did a little cost accounting and said, yeah, this is cheaper. So we went ahead with this. We got one for upstairs. You can also, however, get Netflix, HBO, Hulu, Prime Video through the same box. So you're not flipping to your Apple TV, your Roku, unless you want other channels. But so far, we like it. He likes it more than I do because, of course, as the technology person, I want to be able to see it on my tablet and on my computer, and those interfaces leave a little bit to be desired right now. But as far as watching it from home, I recommend it highly if you're looking to bring your cable costs down and maybe start to think about branching and cord cutting. Because the one I have, when we decide to cut the cord, I can put an antenna on. You can buy them either way. So either way, so it's TiVo, TiVo. Great.
Yeah, I had a TiVo way back, almost 20 years ago now, actually, like 2001 I had one. And it changed how I watch TV then. I haven't had one in a long time. It might be worthwhile. I have thought about cutting the cord, so it might be time to look at this again. Their newer stuff. Excellent. Thank you.
It might tip the scales for you.
Yeah. I've looked at some online services like Sling and other things like that, and they're all somewhere around $40 some odd a month. But if I could even just do this as an interim to bring the cost down in the short term, it might be worthwhile.
Well, especially if it does Hulu, you might be able to use that for the live TV off of Hulu,
right?
Which is about $40 a month with all the Hulu stuff on top of it.
Yeah, that's true.
And watch for their sales, because you can get a really good price. I think I ended up paying what would have been $200, $129 for the original first box, and that has 500 gig of space, and I still never filled it up with recording. So
a little side tip is a company called Weekneys.com, 1K. And they are a TiVo upgrade business. So they will sell you upgrades or sell you an upgraded TiVo with like more storage and that sort of stuff. And I used them back, again, 20 years ago, and they're still around. So they must be doing something right.
Nice.
So, Father Cory, what's your pick of the week?
So my pick is actually something very simple, and it's kind of an older technology that's been updated. My pick is a USB switch selector, and it's a fancy name for a keyboard, video, and mouse switch, KVM switch. Basically, when I was working technology, I remember setting up a server room where we had like 8 servers that we had to run through a KVM switch, so we could run one keyboard, one console, and then each connect to each server. Right. Well, now I've got 2 laptops that I want to be able to use one keyboard. So this Ugreen USB switch selector I got from Amazon. It's like not even $20, and it's just got a little button on there, and you can switch back and forth any USB device. Now I call it a KVM, but it's technically a USB switch. Right. So I can say, like right now I just have the keyboard and mouse, but I could have printer hooked up on it, scanner, whatever, and you hit the button and it all goes to that one device or the other, just back and forth.
Right. So you could have like 2 computers and 1 scanner or 1 printer and switch back and forth, because say it's not like a network scanner or printer. You could switch back and forth between the computers. That's it. It's handy.
Yeah. So I use it now where keyboard and mouse, like for example, right now I've got Skype and the recording on my MacBook Pro, and then my little Chromebook updated Chromebook, I've got like our notes for the show, and I just hit the button and it switches back. The keyboard and mouse just switches back and forth.
Okay. So, and then, excellent. And so my pick is something, another TV pick. This is an app called Locast, and it's a free app that lets you stream your local network TV. And what happens, you say, like, how do they get away with it? They're a nonprofit organization that you may have heard of another app like this that got shut down. They got sued out of existence. But it's a nonprofit and run by a guy who's a lawyer, used to be a lawyer for the FCC. So, that's a pretty big deal. And he probably knows what he's doing. But what they basically tell you is like, hey, you have a right to listen to watch over the air TV. And that's all. That's what we're doing, is capturing over the air content and streaming it to you for free. And they said they're willing to get tested by the courts, and one of the ways to get through this is, again, they're a nonprofit, so they're not making any money off of it. They're just like sort of like an antenna go between. And the apps is a little rough because it's a nonprofit. They probably don't have the best programmers yet, or as many as they need. But it works. I can watch my local TV. No problem. All the different over-the-air channels. Nice. So if you're a cord cutter and you're looking for a source for these things, you watch on your computer, your tablet, your phone. This Locast may be the thing for you.
Yeah, so, I can see that'd be a good option for people, especially who live in apartments where they can't put up an outdoor antenna.
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah.
So I think that about wraps it up for us. I'd like to take a moment before we close out to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create Secrets of Technology. Today, we're going to thank by name Kenny D, Aaron B, Maria S, John H, and Edward G. But we want to thank everyone, and it's through their generous donations at sqpn.com/give that they make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Technology and all the shows we do at sqpn.com. And so you can join them if you go to sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. What did you think of our discussion of electric and autonomous vehicles, and of AT&T's prediction of our past, future, whatever it is? Let us know by going to sqpn.com/technology or the SQPN Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Leave us some feedback or send us an email to technology@sqpn.com. We'll put links to everything we discussed in the show notes on sqpn.com. And remember, please, to like each episode of Secrets of Tech on the SQPN Facebook page, retweet them on Twitter, leave us comments, and if you have not yet done so, please subscribe in iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app. I like Overcast. Other people like Pocket Cast, the word I'm trying to find. Or on YouTube, where you can hit the bell to get notifications. Please write a review in iTunes or one of the podcast directories. That super helps because and share the podcast, because we're trying to build an audience for this new podcast, and we greatly appreciate it. Until next time, Joanne Mercier, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Tech.
Pleasure as always, gentlemen.
Father Corey Stika, thank you as well.
And thank you, Dom.
And once again, I'm Don Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.